On this episode of the podcast, I have with me Vinod Ralhan. He is the Director of Engineering at SurePrep. We're going to be talking about Azure migration best practices. Going to cover a variety of areas, technical challenges, some of the upskilling challenges, finding the right people. How do you get the right people in to help, and how do you know that? Vinod, thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Yes, all those topics are of my interest, and I have been working in this industry for quite some time. And last few years, I have worked on few projects. So I would love to share my experiences and learnings.
Absolutely. All right. Before we get going, let's start with two things. One, what does SurePrep do? So everyone knows that. And then, as the Director of Engineering, what are some of your responsibilities there?
So SurePrep, we are in tax backend automation softwares. So if let's say you are filing your taxes, we have only 15-page binder. It's not a big deal. When the CPA firms file for big clients, they have 8,000-page binders, and that can be a really big deal. So we try to automate as much as in the backend systems, taking from OCRs to scan the system, verifying it, make sure all the numbers are correct, and matching it, and trying to make all those automation so that it becomes easy, and gathering the documents, sending it to IRS, and integrating with the major tax softwares. So all of those are being done, and we have multiple patents. We use machine learning to make sure that everything is, even those things which we have not set up the system for, machines can learn and they can recognize those documents.
Awesome. Sounds like a pretty interesting product. And what's, in terms of your Director of Engineering, what falls under your lap?
Yeah, sure. So I'm leading two products called SP Binder and 1040 Scan. In that there is Review Wizard. So those are the products I'm leading. And in those, basically, how you manage your documents in the binder and how to arrange it, those things, as well as how to verify throughout the process. Those are the things which are in my preview, and I'm trying to migrate to the newer technologies in terms of taking it to the Azure cloud migration also.
All right. That's a good segue. Let's dive into it. So obviously we're talking about, you mentioned a migration to Azure Cloud. So tell us how things look before the migration. Give us an idea of what the environment looked like.
Sure. I will cover my previous company, Meridian Link, where I was doing it, where I had gone through the full cycle. So before the migration, everything was on-prem. We were having our own servers, and if there is a problem, we are dealing with that. If there is a spike on the load, we have to deal with that. So those were the challenges we were dealing. And once we did the migration, so we went from pure VMs, basically pure hard servers. Then we went to container-based systems and put those containers behind Kubernetes, and that auto scaling and putting that as well as all the new technologies, putting the firewalls and all those OWASP related issues, we were able to delegate to Azure, and that way we made our life easier. So scaling was not a problem anymore, and maintenance was easier. Although there were some new learnings and some new challenges in terms of how to navigate through the Azure portal and all those things, and how to make sure our logging and monitorings are infrastructure is properly set up. Those were new things, but overall, I believe that we improved a lot, and in terms of reliability, it increases a lot.
All right, interesting. I guess you mentioned this is successful migration. In this case, we're talking about your previous company. When you look back and you look at some of maybe the help that you needed, was this all done internal? Did you have to engage with a partner? How did you guys approach that?
So I will give first credit to our CTO there. Basically, he took the initiative, and he had good knowledge, and we took the help. We took the help from some consultants also, and then we realized that yes, we want to. So it has to be a mixture. It cannot be one solution fits all. And we went through multiple things. We went through training. We asked our people to learn. We provided the training module. We have that LinkedIn learnings where everybody can learn from that, as well as we got the consultants help and our IT help. They also did some certification and courses, and they were very helpful into doing that. So this one's and we hired some already who were already expert in their area, hiring them. So training your own resources, hiring the best resources, and even taking the help of consultants is all come together, and that's what made us successful. If you had gone to just one route, a consultant might help you in the beginning, but then later on you have to maintain it, then it will not have worked. Doing all three things is the solution, I believe.
So I guess you mentioned three different methods, and obviously you want to make sure there isn't a gap between the consulting team leaving and your team. How early in the process did you guys start planning the training for the internal staff? So obviously you don't want to be in a position where all of a sudden the consultants leave and you're left with a solution that you may not know how to manage.
So very early in the cycle. So I would say before even getting the consultant. So I joined that company in 2019. So I was already working in the cloud, in AWS cloud before in the previous company. So my hiring was part of that. My CTO also was new. All those hiring was done with the mind that we want to go to the cloud. And then we CTO took the initiative, and other people also took the initiative to make sure that we have the right people, and we then start training the other people also in the company, and we did all the resources, and then we start hiring consultant, and would have then those were the very constructive sessions. If your own people are not at the level where if they are at zero level, those sessions will be totally monologue, and the right question will not even come up. So you need to have your own people to have some level of expertise where they can actually ask the right questions.
And I guess in that sense, you have multiple parts that are moving to the cloud. There's multiple aspects: security, development, data infrastructure, cloud infrastructure. As you're kind of looking at the various pieces that had to go to the cloud and looking at your team, did you guys do this was it all done in one shot, meaning sequentially, boom, boom, boom? Was it done in phases to make sure that, everyone had a chance to kind of ramp up and make sure that one piece was implemented before the other? How was the timing of the implementation of the migration?
So no, it was not boom, boom, boom. It's more than a year-long process.
I'd imagine.
and some applications were big, and they would take time, and they were still in the process by the time I left. My application was small, so we became the first candidate in terms of who can go first. And although being small had advantage, but it still required a lot of work. So there were different strategies, do you want to first evaluate whether we want to go to lift and shift, or we want to re-architect the whole thing, or we want to take an intermediate solution. So we went to a little bit intermediate solution. We said, okay, I had two applications in my preview which were migrated. One was we had been doing in .NET Core, so that was good. So we pushed it to Linux containers. And the other was written way back, and it was written in VB, and that we could not migrate right away to Linux container, and then we went to Windows container in those cases. And for those things, there was additional work needed. And then other things you have to, if you are going to the cloud, there are things, issue comes you can get the containers in any time zone. So you cannot rely on the time on the servers. On your prem, you can rely on. So you need to change your code a little bit to handle the dates correctly. Those minor details need to be taken care. So there was some coding was needed, some re-architecture was needed, how we want to address the firewall, right? Earlier we had it in our on-prem, so we could control which IPs to allow, which not to allow, and now we are relying on web. And then which OWASP rule we want to allow or not. All those learning need to be done before you make the migration. So it is a lot of effort, and it is, and then bigger the application, bigger the changes, and those need to be done. And at the same time, you are still in the industry, and you still need to develop the new features, and you're still competing with the other products and other competitors. So you cannot say, okay, I'm just doing the cloud migration and I will stop development. That's not the solution. You still need to do things in parallel.
I guess that's a good point. Making new features as you're planning for new features, and you're going through the migration. Obviously, it's not boom 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 done. It's a long process. Different phases. How did the planning was planning for the roadmap affected? Did you guys have to make adjustments to accounting for this migration?
It was effect to the most, but I believe we were a little bit more optimistic, so we were a little bit behind. But I would take that as a part of growing pains. When you are doing something new, you cannot plan everything as per, but we were happy with the result. That's the main thing. Although we did not meet the timeline, but we were happy with the results, and the issues and scalability and those things, we were able to make it. So those were the good points.
When you guys were, I guess the one thing that sometimes comes to my mind when you're implementing something different than what you've had experience, you guys made hires, for the cloud in preparation. When you're going through that interview process to interview people to make sure they're the right fit, I guess how did that interview process work? Obviously, you guys were not maybe you guys had the internal team to already do the assessing of those skill sets you needed, but how did you guys assess people when you were hiring them to make sure that they were a right fit, since you guys were yourselves still on a legacy platform?
Yeah, so there was some good, smart people in our company, and in those kind of interviews where we knew that these were the strategical position. So in one of the round of they will always be involved. So that was the part that we wanted to make sure that we hire smart people who we know that who has some experience in cloud experience. So like my experience, I had worked in AWS, as I mentioned before that, and Azure was totally new when I came to Meridian, and that was new learning for me also. But having the cloud experience helps jumping to that train easily. And that's the same thing. I try to make sure that we don't need to have the exact experience which we want, but as long as the person have the aptitude and some experience on those areas where they can at least have the small learning curve and pick up quickly, that would be that thing. And then we start training our own in-house people so that they are not left behind too much that they cannot even support it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess that's the flip side is, like we've been talking about the people to support it, making sure they have the right skills. And obviously the consultant team is going to roll off and you want to be self-sufficient. I guess if you're looking back at that from the point in which the consulting team left and you guys were feeling comfortable you could operate at maximum efficiency, what kind of time did that take?
Consultant left, I would say around 6 to 9 months kind of thing. Then they were helping us, and then we were still a little bit juggling through, but we were able to make it later on.
Awesome. Yeah, it's I think these migrations always is about when when people leave, it's and you've got to run things yourself, and you have to be self-sufficient. And so you could pick up a phone and call somebody and get a question answered. But it's different when it's your area. I guess as you kind of look back at that migration, does anything come to mind that you would have done differently? I mean, looking back, I guess it's kind of hard in real time to look at it. But any lessons learned, anything you would have done differently at all?
I think. Maybe we could have put a little bit more effort into training people earlier in the cycle and getting more so that everybody start jumping in, because in the beginning, only few people were working in the cloud migration and everybody was still into the features. Maybe we could have put more aggregate effort and do that way, maybe that would have been a little bit. We would have get a little bit better results. But see, these things you can never predict. You learn as you go, basically.
Absolutely. No, it seems it's not a science. It's more art. I mean, you can't possibly forecast all the things. When you're talking about training your team, obviously they did they did coursework and they're trying to do the lunch and learns. Was there any opportunity for them to participate in the development when you were figuring out with the consulting team? The strategy, was there opportunities to have your team hands-on, or was it a case where you really had to let the consulting, take hold and manage the engagement and kind of be a little hands-off at that point?
No, that our development team was very much hands-on involved. So our enterprise architects team was very good into guiding, and our IT team was very good in that. They were able to guide our development team, and we were very hands-on.
Did that end up helping? Like, you mentioned the training beforehand. Did that actually help accelerate their training? I mean, I know you mentioned, obviously they were, training beforehand. Obviously, a lot of academics, but once you're in the midst of it, did that help actually accelerate some of the learnings?
So what I would say, the point where we missed, not everybody was self-motivated and curious to guide themselves. So then everybody jumped on the board later on, but in the beginning, some people were still doing their own function development, but not on the Azure development. So that was there is personal curiosity, and some people are curious and some people are not. So the point was then we were dealing with a little bit less bandwidth who were more curious and in the development. So that's what I was saying, that in the end, everybody was on board, but in the beginning, that transition was a little slower, and that took us a little bit extra time.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, they're not easy. Whenever you're migrating anything and you talk about new skill sets and the timelines, the work still has to be produced. I mean, it's a very convoluted project. Sounds like it worked out. It sounds like, I mean, you did the best planning you could. I appreciate you coming on and sharing, because these migrations are not easy, and I think bringing visibility to some of the thought process always is good.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Before I let you go, I was going to ask you, I'd like to ask two final questions before you go. One is, if a future guest, you could ask them to do a topic or cover a specific question that you might have. Is there anything that you'd like to hear about?
Yes, I would like to, recommend Ajay Chalana. He's the director of engineering, senior director of engineering in Visa. I can actually check with him if he's available, and he would have some very good points, because they are running the whole cloud in-house, because Visa do not subscribe to the public cloud, so they are doing the whole cloud things in-house. So that would be interesting. I would love to hear that.
Okay, right, yeah. If you know somebody who's running running their own cloud in-house, and he's willing to be a guest to be on and talk about it, I think a lot of people like to hear about that. So that'd be fantastic. If somebody wants to reach out to you to touch base with you on anything you mentioned on the podcast, but what is a good way of getting a hold of you?
You can reach through my Gmail, vinod.ralhan@gmail.com, or send me a message on connect with me on LinkedIn.
All right. We'll make sure we include those links on the show notes. But no, thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That's it for this topic. We'll be back. Yeah, different topic, different guests until then. Two things. In this case, we're going to see, hopefully Vinod can help us coordinate having somebody talk about in-house cloud infrastructure and how that's being managed. I think it's going to be an exciting topic. If the podcast is useful, if you enjoyed it, please share it with somebody. If you can, leave a rating on the Apple Podcast or whatever your preferred platform is that you listen to the podcast on. That's how we grow. So I can't thank you enough for doing that. Otherwise, that's it for now. Be back again. Thank you and goodbye.